Hey, what's going on, Guardians? TBL here, and today we've got something special. We've got ourselves an updated version of the Destiny 2 development roadmap from none other than Bungie game director Christopher Barrett. That's right, and as you no doubt know by now, these development roadmaps show kind of a path forward for upcoming updates to Destiny 2, what you can expect within those updates, and what's going to be coming even further down the line, and how it's going to affect the game moving forward. This new development roadmap goes on to finish out Season 3 and Year 1 of Destiny 2, and gives us a little bit of information about the start of Year 2 Season 1. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. Now, of course, this article was posted over at Bungie.net. We'll have a link to it down in the description box below if you want to check it out for yourself. But Chris starts things out by saying this. Now that Warmind has officially launched, we're ready to add some additional details to the upcoming roadmap. There are a lot of eagerly awaited updates that are scheduled to arrive in September, and we'll tell you more about those in the coming months, including our plans for Year 2 of Destiny 2. But this summer won't just be spent playing the waiting game. We'll be delivering the prestige modes you've been waiting for, bringing back bounties, providing quality of life fixes, and more. In addition, we're launching a new seasonal event called the Solstice of Heroes, where Guardians will celebrate their accomplishments and, of course, earn sweet new rewards. And then we get our look at the newly updated development roadmap. Let's go ahead and take a look. We are, of course, currently in 1.2.0. This deployed with the launch of Warmind. It, of course, brought us seasonal Crucible rankings, private matches, vault space increases, the multi-emote wheel, exotic weapon masterworks, seasonal vendor progression, exotic weapon sandbox changes, heroic strike modifiers, and the legendary Nightfall challenge cards. And that was a lot to get in this update, and a lot of it's really good. I'm really digging the exotic weapon masterworks and the change to the overall exotic sandbox. But we're going to be getting another update rather soon, update 1.2.1, the one about rallies. This is going to be dropping on May 29th, and it's going to include faction rally improvements, Crucible Labs, something brand new there, and exotic armor sandbox changes. Now, the three of those, Crucible Labs is probably the one that caught your eye. Don't worry, they go on to explain that later in the article, and we'll be getting right to it. It's some really interesting stuff. Faction rallies. They said that they were going to be going back to the drawing board when it came to faction rallies, and how exactly those impacted your grind for loot as a player. Now, since then, they haven't really given us much information on how exactly they're going to be changing up faction rallies, so I'm very interested in learning what we're going to be getting later this month. This is coming in just a couple of weeks, and I cannot wait. Of course, exotic armor sandbox changes is another huge thing that was actually scheduled for 1.2.0, but had to get pushed back a little bit, and I'm glad that they're going to be done with it later this month. Alright, after that, we've got the update coming in the month of July. There's no tentative date for this one, it's just sometime within that month. We've got the Solstice of Heroes seasonal event, bounties, which are finally making their way into Destiny 2, Expansion 1 and 2 Raid Lair Prestige modes, hopefully that has some new and substantial raid armor ornaments tied to it, maybe even some new gear and whatnot, PC Clan Text Chat, Year 1 Triumphs, that's very important there, and more exotic armor sandbox changes. Now, if you're a player who's new to Destiny, and you're like, Year 1 Triumphs, what does that mean? Well, basically, Destiny 1 had triumphs each year. They were basically tasks that you needed to complete, and then you'd be rewarded with like an exclusive item, like an ornament or shader or sparrow or emblem or something like that. It was basically a way to celebrate player interaction and the goals that you had completed throughout your time playing Destiny that year. Usually they would include stuff like reaching maximum level, or beating the story, or beating a hard mode of a raid, or I guess a prestige mode of a raid in D2, and stuff like that. And like I said before, it would reward you with exclusive gear that you could only get for completing those activities and then marking them off on like a record book. And you know, if you went into the next year of Destiny, new players would come to you and say, hey man, where'd you get that ship, or where'd you get that shader? And you would get to say, hey, you just had to be there. So really interesting to see that system coming back. And of course, more exotic armor sandbox changes. It looks like not all of the exotic armor changes are going to be ready for the update on May 29th, so those are being pushed back to July as well. Maybe a two-parter. After that, we have got the start of Year 2 Season 1, September, the one where so many Guardians' hopes and dreams are pinned. In this update, we're getting gear collections, records, weapon slot changes, weapon randomization, new gameplay modes, and more yet to be revealed. Now, some of this is huge. They're confirming weapon slot changes. Now, does this mean we're going directly back to the primary, secondary, heavy system in Destiny 1? We can't say definitively yes or no, but man, wouldn't that be something. But we do now know that they are making direct changes to the way you utilize weapons in Destiny 2. Cannot wait to learn more about that. Weapon randomization is the other half of that coin. Of course, this is something that a lot of players are taking to mean randomized rolls on guns. That, of course, was a huge reason behind the grind for many players back in Destiny 1, trying to get that perfectly rolled gun. And it definitely looks like we're going to be getting some sort of aspect of that back. Now, whether that's going to mix in with the mod system, since they didn't really mention that here on this development roadmap, I don't know. But a change up to the way your guns work is definitely in the pipeline for later this year. And then, of course, new gameplay modes. Now, this is something that was kind of teased from back when Bungie had that community summit where they invited all of those Destiny community people in. They tested a bunch of things. They got to play Warmind content before Warmind came out, and they also got to see some content that was coming in September, including a new game mode that apparently got a lot of praise. So it looks like we'll be learning a bit more about that later in the summer. And of course, more to be revealed. That probably means the expansion that's set to drop later this year. But alright, there we go. Those are the changes on the newly updated development roadmap. Now, before we close things out here, we got to hear from Bungie design lead Derek Carroll as well, who talked a bit about some of the things we learned from this roadmap. Here's what he had to say. I can already hear you asking, what is Crucible Labs? And I'm glad you want to know more. Update 1.2.1 will include a new feature intended to give you a peek behind the scenes and a louder voice in our creative process. Crucible Labs will give every player of Destiny 2 access to experimental PvP content. We'll then have a chance to solicit your feedback to guide our final iterations. You'll learn more about Labs before launch. For today, with it making an appearance on the roadmap, I wanted to give you a preview of our goals. More to come on this soon. And there we go, that is something huge, experimental, giving every player of Destiny 2, so not just PC players, not just console players, every player of D2, access to experimental PvP content. That sounds awfully close to a PTR. PTR, of course, meaning a public test realm. It might also be PTS or public test server. Or basically a test server where devs can experiment and balance changes and players can kind of test that on the fly and give their feedback on those changes before a company pushes out a big update. This is a big thing when it comes to MMOs, stuff like World of Warcraft, stuff like The Division, all have these public test realms for players to kind of go in, test new content, new sandbox environments, and give their feedback on it before it goes live. And while I'm not exactly saying that's what this is, it's certainly what it sounds like when they say that they're going to be giving players access to experimental PvP content before it goes live. If this could give people access to like sandbox environments where maybe weapon damage changes have been in effect, to give you a chance to see if you really want that faster time to kill before they push it out for everybody, I love the sound of that. This also sounds like a great way to test some incoming game modes. I almost can't believe some of the things I'm reading right here, but this sounds fantastic. And the fact that we're going to be getting our first look at Crucible Labs later this month, this is the kind of stuff I love to see. But alright, there we go, Guardians. That's it for everything we learned from today's Destiny 2 development roadmap, giving us a greater look at what's going to be coming in the summer. And I've got to say, there's some really exciting stuff in here. But you've heard my thoughts, be sure to leave me yours down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest Destiny 2 news. But alright, it's going to be it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I am Blacklink. You Guardians, stay frosty.